Welcome to Co-Sheltering and Co-Housing 101, a review of four different models. My name is Vickie Ramirez, and I'm both a board member of My Dog is My Home, and I work at the Center for One Health Research at the University of Washington, where I managed the One Health Clinic, a combined human and veterinary healthcare clinic for our community members experiencing homelessness with pets. I will be moderating today's session, and I want to give special thanks to Emma Newton and Elizabeth Anderson, who are helping on the back end of this session. Um, as you know, or as you will learn in these next few days, co-sheltering those experiencing homelessness or fleeing domestic violence with their pets allows families to remain together and provides a safe space for both humans and their companion animals to regroup together as they plan the next steps towards housing. The presenters in this session represent four unique shelters that welcome pets into their settings and have made co-sheltering a part of their standard practice. Today, we're going to learn how Father Joe's Villages, PATH, Found House IHN, and the Urban Resource Institute has approached incorporating companion animals into the fabric of the services they provide, the policies that they have enacted, and the results that they have seen. I am super honored to be the moderator of this session because I know all the amazing work that these organizations have done. And they do not only allow pets, they welcome them into their respective settings. The presenters in this session present four unique shelters that welcome pets into their settings. La la la, I did not edit that out correctly. So I'm going to go into introduction of our panel members. So today we have Jessie Casement, Division Director of Client Services at Father Joe's Villages, who has dedicated her 15-year career with one of the largest service providers in San Diego to supporting San Diegans experiencing homelessness. In that time, she has championed the view that shelters should welcome pets along with their humans, a policy that, for many neighbors in need, has been life-changing. Jessie is a member of the Co-Sheltering Collaborative, a peer-to-peer learning network focused on sheltering people and their animals together. Outside of work, Jessie soaks up every moment spent with her daughter, accepts all cuddles and kisses from her pets, and enjoys attending live theater. Beau Chaverri is based at the Urban Resource Institute, or URI, in New York and has worked in DV since 2017. Starting at the hotline and now with the PALS program at URI, they have spent a lot of time being the bridge between animal welfare and human services and has a vast knowledge of the human and animal resource landscape of New York and beyond. Beau has spoken with hundreds of survivors over the years and also cares deeply about animals. Our next presenter is Garrett Parsons, the Pet Support Director for Found House Interfaith Housing Network in Cincinnati, Ohio. For the past 9 years, he has grown and run the Pet Support Program, which offers temporary shelter to animals of owners experiencing housing insecurity. Under Garrett's leadership, the Pet Support Program has become a vital source for pet owners in Cincinnati seeking help with shelter or housing and ensures that families are not overlooked and remain intact. Garrett has spoken extensively about the importance of offering pet-inclusive services to families at various animal welfare and social service conferences, including those put on by Humane World for Animals and the Coalition on Homelessness and Housing in Ohio. I love this part. In his free time, Garrett serves on the board for CliftonDeer.org, an innovative and humane deer fertility control program in Cincinnati. And he also likes to spend time hiking and backpacking with his wife. And finally, we have Tescia Uribe, who found her calling as a social worker in 2005 and has made an impact in the community by being a leader who puts the people she is serving first. With over 15 years of social work and nonprofit experience, Tescia now oversees PATH service delivery programs throughout the state as Chief Program Officer. She ensures a consistent approach and quality of services across all PATH and PATH Ventures programs, which serves veterans, families, and individuals with disabilities in interim housing and permanent housing. She also oversees PATH's outreach and engagement, housing navigation, and case management services across the state. Tescia's experience working with vulnerable communities, struggling with homelessness, substance use, and mental and physical health difficulties fuels her passion ensuring PATH's programs meet every client's needs. What this session is going to look like is that we're going to have each presenter talk about their program for 5 minutes, and then we're going to have a panel discussion. So you're going to have the opportunity to ask questions specifically to those organizations in the breakout sessions following. So if you have questions that come up, jot them down on a little paper next to you, and you'll be able to bring that up next time since there will not be a Q&A session involved in this session. Okay, so we're going to begin with Jessie Casement presenting on Father Joe's Villages. Emma, if you wouldn't mind sharing the screen.
Hi there. My name is Jessie Casement, and as Vickie said, I'm from Father Joe's Villages in San Diego, California. Next slide, please. At Father Joe's Villages, our mission is to prevent and end homelessness one life at a time. And we work every day towards that mission through the delivery of our creed, which stands for compassion, respect, empathy, empowerment, and dignity. 2025 marks our 75th anniversary. It's hard to believe. Over the past 75 years, Father Joe's Villages has grown to include a comprehensive campus, as well as scattered site programs that last year, in 2024, served 11,516 unique adults and children experiencing a housing crisis. We divide our programs into what we call our 4 pillars of care, which emphasize meeting basic needs. That includes our housing, meal, and day center programs, investing in children, which includes our therapeutic childcare services for families, making health a priority, which includes our federally qualified health center, including medical, dental, and behavioral health care. And then also our 4th pillar, which is strengthening self-sufficiency, which is represented through our employment and education services, vocational training, as well as our chaplaincy and health and wellness programs. We know that people who are unsheltered are at great risk of illness and violent crime. And because of that, Father Joe's Villages prioritizes low barrier access to programs, including various shelter models and various shelter designs to allow for client choice. But one thing that all of our shelter programs have in common is that they are 100% pet inclusive, regardless of design. Next slide, please. Father Joe's Villages began accepting service animals and emotional support animals in our shelters in 2010, and then we expanded to welcoming pets in 2020. So in the midst of a global pandemic, we decided to bring on the pets. In the past 15 years, we have served at least 751 animals in at least 567 households. I say at least because it took us some time to develop good data entry habits on the animal enrollments, and because we do not complete animal enrollments in our seasonal inclement weather shelter, because we're getting so many people in every night so quickly. So we don't do an animal enrollment, which means those animals and their people are not counted into the totals on this slide. Approximately 43% of the animals we've served over the years have been pets versus assistive animals. Next slide. Each night, Father Joe's Villages operates 800 shelter beds for families and single adults experiencing homelessness. 670 of those beds are in 3 buildings co-located at what we call our village campus in downtown San Diego. And then the remaining 130 of those beds are at an offsite location in our city. Plus, on cold and wet nights, our team set up an additional 134 cots and mats in our dining room so that we can get more folks into a warm and dry space during the winter months. So that gives us a mix of emergency shelter, transitional housing, recuperative care, detox, and in the winter, inclement weather beds, and all of them except pets. And by pet, I mean any animal that can be kept legally as a pet in the city of San Diego. So fur, hair, feathers, fins, scales, shells, we welcome them all happily. Next slide, please. Most of our shelter beds are set up in a room with a door. 534 of our year-round shelter beds are in a setting like what you can see on the slide. And that means that they're in a semi-private space with a door that closes and locks. A family may get a private room based on their family makeup or their family size or need, but we try to roommate families as much as possible so that beds don't go unused. And then our single adults all share their spaces and may have up to 4 roommates in a room. These spaces are quieter for the animal. They're easier to co-shelter in because of the door, but because the rooms are shared and because our staff still may need access to the space, we make great use of crates so the animals are safely contained when the owner is not in the room. Next slide, please. The remaining 266 of our year-round shelter beds, as well as our inclement weather beds, are in congregate open-air dorm spaces. There's no door. Maybe there's a divider, but there's not any kind of way to shut off that space. The spaces are tighter, they're much denser, and as a result, they are noisier. So our team gets more creative in those spaces. They're faced with different challenges in helping the animal and their human cohabitate with hundreds of other roommates. But I'm here to tell you it can be done. Crates, baby gates, blankets, and perhaps some intentional bunk mating can go a long way to make a quiet, contained space for the animal. Next slide, please. While co-sheltering can create some extra work for our teams, and from time to time it can challenge us to think differently about how a space can be utilized, at Father Joe's Villages, we know it's worth it. Welcoming a person with their pet removes a significant barrier to entry. It allows us to start authentic, honest future planning with a client from day one, instead of having a policy where we only accept emotional support or service animals. By saying we accept pets, it allows the humans to tell us, this is my pet, instead of feeling forced to tell us it's an emotional support animal when it's not. That helps us and our teams to really case manage from the beginning, to know exactly what kind of challenges they may face in trying to identify and move into permanent housing. We know the pet is their family member, and frequently it's also a source of protection and motivation during a traumatic event. We don't want humans to have to choose between safety and their loved ones. And so we remove that barrier and think it's been worthwhile. I'm very excited to be here with you today and look forward to questions that you may have later. Thank you.
I think Garrett is coming up next.
Thank you, Vickie. Hi, everyone. My name is Garrett Parsons, and I'm the Pet Support Director at Found House Interfaith Housing Network in our Pet Support Program. Next slide. So Found House IHN, we started sheltering families in 1991. So we're one of the few family homeless shelters in Hamilton County, which is where Cincinnati sits. So we're a homeless shelter, but we're also a housing services agency, creating our own housing just a few years ago. So we started adding that title. We initially did not plan on sheltering animals. We really pride ourselves, though, on allowing a family to define themselves. So years ago, that just mentality led us to start sheltering same-sex couples. It allowed us to start sheltering men and children in the same program, in the same building. It allowed us to shelter families. Maybe it was an aunt, an uncle, and a grandparent that didn't have custody of that child, but was allowed to have them in shelter. So we really pride ourselves in allowing families to define themselves, which is what led us to start including animals. It just made sense. We weren't truly allowing a family to define themselves and respecting that if they weren't able to bring their animal in. So we serve families all over Cincinnati. The Pet Support Program started, though, as a way to shelter animals for families in our shelter. Now, if anyone is familiar with the Family Promise method of sheltering families, it's a national type of sheltering. It utilizes the faith community. So different congregations in Cincinnati will host our families for us at night. They'll be at that church every night for a week, and then the next week they'll move to a different congregation. It wasn't practical for all of those different denominations to accept pets, so we created kennel facilities for our families that the animals could stay in at night. We did that for a couple years. When I started, we expanded. We were getting calls from all of the homeless shelters in Cincinnati saying, we have clients in our program that have animals. Can those animals stay with you? We heard you have these kennel facilities. So we made it happen. So right now, 10 years later, we're at our 10-year anniversary. We serve pet owners who are experiencing housing insecurity anywhere in Cincinnati. They could be individuals, they could be same-sex couples, they could be families, they could be veterans, they could be youth. Anybody in the tri-state area here in Cincinnati. We even started sheltering families who were trying to get into treatment programs or be hospitalized. So essentially what we've started doing is just keep the family together. That is our mantra here in the Pet Support Program, and that is what we've been focused on these past 10 years. So what do we offer? We'll go to the next slide. So of course, shelter and foster, and I apologize for some of these letters that didn't really work out, but so we offer shelter and foster to animals whose clients are going through those crises, like I mentioned. We've even started offering food and supplies to low-income pet owners in Cincinnati as a form of prevention, making sure that families, again, stay together. We're social workers here at Found House, so we're providing referrals to our families, especially if the pet support program is that first stop on the journey to housing security. Access to vaccination, access to spay neuter, access to pet deposit funding when we have it, doing a lot of advocacy work, which I'll talk a little bit later. We've kind of become this one-stop shop for pet owners seeking services in Cincinnati, all in the name of ensuring folks have access to services that otherwise might not have accessed them because they had nowhere for their pet to go. So I believe next slide is just an example of some of our facilities. We've got some dog kennels. We'll go to the next slide. You'll see some cat kennels. And then the slide after that is an example of what our outdoor yards look like. So essentially what we did, we've been learning how to run an animal shelter. For a long time, it was just staffed by me. We've been really fortunate to hire an amazing person who's here with us full time, has access or has experience in dog training. So we're running an animal shelter, but also, within the confines of a homeless shelter. We'll go to the next slide. We'll start talking about some of our numbers. So over the last 10 years, we have, as you can see, kind of grown exponentially with that little kind of divot during COVID. But we have managed to shelter more animals every single year than the year before, essentially. So we'll do dogs, we'll do cats, and we'll do any other type of pet that an animal or that an owner is legally allowed to have. So we've had snakes, we've had rabbits, we've had fish. Generally, we find fosters for those pets pretty quickly, so they're not on site. I will say also, when the animals are in our program, the owners come and visit. Usually it's about once a week, and that's kind of our response to just the lack of co-sheltering options in Cincinnati. And that kind of takes me back to why we're doing this in the first place. A lot of homeless shelters in our areas do not allow animals, which is why we expanded to basically include any pet owner in Cincinnati. If we go to the next slide, you'll see some of our stats, some of our outcomes. Again, sorry for the little bit of issue right there. But our return to owner rate has historically been pretty high. I would imagine it would be higher in a true co-sheltering environment. The majority of the animals return home to their owners. Every now and then, we have sick animals that pass away. We've had owners pass away over the years. We've had some abandonment, but it's really rare. The most of the time when animals cannot return to their owners, it's because that owner, that family, secured housing that wasn't pet inclusive. And that actually, that's one of our biggest challenges, is ensuring that all of our services in Cincinnati are pet inclusive so that pet inclusive housing is secured. But the majority return to their owners, and we find that incredibly rewarding. And then last slide. So we're really passionate about assisting pet owners navigating Cincinnati resources, and I'll go really quickly because I think I'm at time. We want to make sure that in Cincinnati, our social service shelter employees and housing providers are pet inclusive, so we do a lot of advocacy work there. And then also we take a lot of phone calls, so a lot of creative problem solving to prevent surrenders and ensure families have access to services. Thank you very much.
Great. Then we have Beau up.
Hi. Yes, my name is Beau Ebner Chaverri. I use they, them pronouns, and I work with PALS at URI. Oh, next slide. Okay, so URI is Urban Resource Institute. They work with homeless families and domestic violence survivors in New York City. We are the largest provider of domestic violence shelter in the whole country. And when people are entering our shelter, there are a few different programs that people have access to. So we have a legal advocacy program, we have an economic program, and of course we have PALS, People and Animal Living Safely. And all these programs together, they're about taking down barriers. They're trying to make it easier for whatever the next steps are. It's just easier to get back to life. And I have a little section here I took from the website because I think it really nicely encapsulates like the why of why we do this. So I'm just going to read that. It says, before PALS, many domestic violence survivors face the heartbreaking choice of leaving their pets behind, surrendering them, or staying in an abusive home due to shelters not accommodating animals. PALS eliminates this dilemma by supporting the human-animal bond, crucial for healing from trauma. Next slide. Thanks. Okay. So I'm not gonna get too into it, but this also kind of expands on that quote. In 2019, PALS teamed up with the National Domestic Violence Hotline, just to ask questions of people in regards to their animals in their life. And one of the biggest takeaways we got was that people are willing to stay in dangerous situations. People will put themselves in dangerous situations, like living out on the street, or returning to abuse or whatever it is, in order to maintain the bond with their animal. And the other thing that we took from it is that all shelters, if you're homeless, need to start considering that people have pets, and start thinking about that in the process. Next slide, please. And here's a little bit more about PALS specifically. So we launched over 10 years ago in collaboration with other city agencies and animal welfare partners that we still work with today. At the time, we were the only shelter provider and the first shelter provider to accept pets, not emotional support animals, not service animals, but pets specifically. Well, those as well, but all of it. And we started off in one shelter, and it was just cats. And now today we are a team of 7 people. 3 of those people are managing directly with the sites, and we're in 10 shelters of the 15 that URI has. And we're still less than 20% of DV shelters nationwide that have a program for pets, and even fewer of those are offering co-living. So co-living for us means that when people are entering shelter, they're entering with the animal. There is no separation at any time. So they're coming in, they are living as if they lived at home, right? They have their own private space. Because in New York City, you're actually not allowed to have animals in shared spaces. So there's some examples on the side there of what a unit looks like. And yeah, they are, from beginning to end, they are staying with the animal throughout their whole DV shelter time. Next slide, please. And this is just our numbers and what we've done over time. So in over 10 years, we've seen 700 plus families come through our shelters. We've had over 900 pets, and that's also everything legal to own in New York City. Lots of dogs, lots of cats, but anything, right? But on top of that, I, as a program assistant, am talking to a lot of individuals and families that we have not been able to get into our shelter because the need is just so massive. As much as people we've helped, we've talked to so many more, and we're providing referrals, we're discussing next steps, we're discussing what it looks like outside of our program. But yeah, that need is there, and this work is very, very doable. So yeah, and next slide. And that was just ways to to get in contact with us. And of course the Q&A, if you have any specific questions, I'm there too. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Beau. And last but not least, we have Tescia.
Hello, my name is Tescia Uribe, and I'm the Chief Program Officer for PATH. And we can go to the next slide. PATH has been around since 1984, and we are a statewide organization. And so in 2024, we served over 28,000 individuals, and we helped about 5,300 folks find a permanent home. Next slide. So it gives you a breakdown of the areas that we're in. So PATH works out of Los Angeles County, San Diego County, Orange County, Santa Clara County, and Santa Barbara. Next slide. There's another, I guess, really nice picture of all the regions. So we could go to the next slide. So we're going to highlight our Los Angeles interim housing programs for this group today, but all of our programs throughout the state follow the same model. So next slide, please. So we're highlighting the different facilities we have within Los Angeles, and the reason for that is that we provide shelters that are both congregate and individual hotel rooms, and then some that are just like cubicle congregate settings. And so at all of our sites, we follow the same policy and protocols for the animals. And as of today, within Los Angeles, we have a total of 237 animals that we're serving in our sites. I think part of the difficulty with collecting data is since I started operating shelters with PATH in 2015, we've always allowed animals, but we have always focused our service delivery on the human part. And so we hadn't collected aggregate data on the amount of animals we served, but we are starting to do that. So we should have better, more comprehensive data soon. Next slide. So the reason why we place such a heavy focus on making sure our sites can accommodate animals is because in LA County, about 24% of individuals experiencing homelessness have a pet, and most shelters do not permit animals on their property. And so that is a huge barrier for folks. They don't want to leave their pets, as some of the other panelists have said. And to give up something you love and something that's been such a, support system to you at a time when you're so vulnerable, just didn't seem like the right thing to do in the direction PATH wanted to go in its service mission. Next slide. So we also have a bunch of studies that we would look at and talk with our staff about, that health benefits, reduced isolation, practicing responsibility, and then safety. Next slide. So just wanted to highlight some of the challenges that we've had with allowing animals is the type of funding that is given to shelters, and oftentimes it does not include enough funding for appropriate pet care and pet supplies. There had been a PASS program that was funded through the state, and it was 2 years of just plentifulness of being able to help the animals folks brought in. We were able to do veterinary services. We could bring in trainers, food, treats, leashes, etc. And we were really able to have a heavy focus on helping the animals. We even were able to hire a pet coordinator who would be the case manager for all the animals and their owners at our sites. Next slide. Unfortunately, that funding was cut and was not renewed by the state, and so we've had to change our approach. So we focus a lot, obviously, on donations and in-kind type of asks. We also now incorporate budgeting for pet supply items into our government grants, which it's been interesting that a lot of government entities have been accepting of that and allowed us to budget in animal supplies. Because we have to ensure that our shelters stay habitable, that it stays clean, that people have what they need to take care of their animals. And then just we have testimonials, so we could end at this slide, but it's just, animals are folks' emotional support, and it helps them have a reason to move on and to move forward with their lives and hopefully find permanent housing for them and their animals. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tescia, and thank you all the presenters that crammed all the amazing things they do into 5 minutes, and I'm sure you missed a lot. We are going to open this up now to a panel discussion. Again, if you have questions for any of these organizations, write them down next to you, and then you can go to their breakout session and ask the question that you have. So my first question is going to be for you, Jessie. How has co-sheltering helped the people that you serve to be successful?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. You've heard several of us talk about, I think all of us mentioned how we know pets are family to the people that we serve. And so I think first and foremost, the benefit to our client is knowing that they get to stay with their family member, that they don't have to make a choice between their safety and the safety of their pet, that they can come in together, stay connected, and access the services. And that frees up, brain space to be able to know that their animal is okay, that they're they're in a crate or they're in a space where they're protected while they're out working on case plan activities like employment, going to classes, appointments, whatever it is, I think really allows them to focus on their next step beyond their current crisis that they're in. And we had a success story that I can just share real quickly. We had a young adult, a transitional age youth. So he was between the ages of 18 and 24. He was new to San Diego, so didn't have any connections here. And while he was on the street with his dog, he didn't have anyone that could watch his animal while he was trying to go to school. And so by moving into shelter and having a safe space that he could leave his dog in while he went to class, he was able to work towards education that he wanted to gain. He got a job. He was able to reconnect with his family and actually relocated back to the city that he was from. So it's just that peace of mind that their animal's okay while they're working on other priorities.
Great. Garrett, do you have something from Found House of
Yeah,
Uribe?
thanks. I'll just kind of, it's a little bit of a piggyback too. It's like when our families don't have to worry about surrendering their animal, that's so much trauma that doesn't have to be experienced, which lends to so much more space to focus on whatever it is that person needs to get back on their feet. I've heard so many people state, almost verbatim, like I'm doing this for me and my pet, me and my dog, me and my baby, like my baby, whatever it is. It's like it's the motivation. And if that animal's not there, well, it's the trauma, and then that motivation's also gone.
Great. Beau?
Yeah, so I think for us, because we're specifically in like domestic violence shelter, so often we find that if there's abuse in the home to the humans, there's abuse going on with the animal as well. So the benefit for us is people are coming in and they have a space to heal with the animal. The animal has space to heal. So often in like abusive situations, survivors are not allowed or not able to because of the abuser of the situation. They can't, take out their pets for walks. They can't necessarily, have access to like grooming their pets and stuff like that. And so when they're coming to our shelter, they're giving a chance to have all those things back, and that helps both of them. And yeah, it's just another step towards healing. So I don't know, that's my answer.
Great. Great. And Tescia?
Sure. So I think on a different note, one of the things that has helped us is sometimes folks who have been on the street a long time and are reluctant to come inside. One, knowing that they can bring their animal with them is nice for them and reassuring. But the second thing is we've had numerous people that I can count who their animal started to age or their animal started to get old. And then they said, oh, now I need to go inside because my animal needs to stay inside and needs a better place to live. So it can also be like an impetus for people to get the care that they need themselves because they want to care for their animal.
I love that. I love that. I'm Tescia. I'm going to stay on you again, so don't mute yourself. What challenges or issues have you experienced doing co-sheltering there?
Sure. So, I mean, there's been numerous issues and challenges. I think running a shelter period has more issues and challenges than a lot of other areas of social work or the helping profession. And so a lot of it has been learning through the process. So you don't think of all the things that could happen, and you don't think of all the things you need to prepare for until sometimes they happen. So for example, litters of puppies being born, and a bird who won't be quiet at night. So it's these things that like you have to strategize and plan around, particularly when you're in a congregate setting, because you have to maintain the peace for everyone. And so I think it's been, I would say, challenging in a learning way. Also learning how to strategize on intake questions. So there may be people who hate cats and don't want to be anywhere near cat. So you'll note that in the intake so that if you get somebody with a cat, they're not going to be like right next to each other. So it's been a lot of on the go learning and adjusting how we plan things.
Great. Beau, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so when people get into like human social services, they are not getting into it to work with animals, right? People are coming into it with a lot of different ideas about animals. You know, people have trauma, people have vicarious trauma from working with people. People are coming from all sorts, and they see an animal. And they're like, oh, am I gonna have to clean up after this dog? Am I gonna have to deal with this animal? What am I gonna have to do? And so we're kind of constantly having a conversation with people. Our aim is always to like, it's the owner and us who are dealing with the animal. It's never any stranger, never any shelter staff. I think it's a lot of those like and also having space for people. Like people don't have to like animals to work with them or work with people who have them. It's just kind of like having space for all of it. Another challenge we do have is like transitioning from like our setting into like another shelter that doesn't necessarily have a program for animals. And so that's another big challenge is like how do we bridge these things? And yeah, it takes a lot of human case management, but then we also, as pals, we do a lot of animal case management and like next steps of like how do we keep these families together.
Great. I'm actually going to pivot a little bit because I think this topic can keep continuing in and with our next question. So Garrett, I'm going to ask you, what policies or procedures have you put in place to resolve some challenges that Found House has had?
Yeah, I mean, and I think we're a little bit unique too, because it's kind of like we have that animal shelter embedded in our shelter, working with pet owners at other shelters. So a lot of the things that we've resolved is just like trial and error, learning how to make sure that, owners are safe when they're visiting their animals, and the other families and children are safe, and while they're the other families and children are safe while there are other animals in the building. But I think more than that, some of our biggest issues stem from working with service providers, not in our shelter, but when our clients get matched with other programs hosted by other agencies, ensuring the buy-in and ensuring that those people are pet inclusive. So we've kind of established like just like a kind of a verification process, reaching out to those providers, ensuring that they know that their client's animal is with us. They're agreeing to make sure that case plan includes the pet so that ultimately pet inclusive housing is secured.
Great. Jesse, that same question. What kind of policies and procedures have you put into place?
I'm gonna do a combination of the two questions, which
Yeah.
I messed up when we started bringing animals in 2010. I made the mistake of assuming everyone loved animals as much as I did. Just building off of what Beau said, we had an existing team here that had only had to serve humans, had never had to serve animals with their humans. And so there were biases, there were very real fears that people had around specific species and breeds. And so by not giving the team the support that they needed to prepare them for, you know, we really have a policy at Father Joe's Villages that the person is taking care of their animal. There's very little reason that our staff would need to interact with the animal, but to just feel comfortable being around someone with their animal, to walk into a space and do a room check and make sure smoke detectors are working and know that there might be a snake in that cage. There's different kind of preparation that I didn't do for the team in the beginning. And so really, it's not so much a policy as much as it is just our approach now is to make sure that any new person who is looking at coming to work in a role at Father Joe's Villages understands how pet inclusive we are, that they will be working around animals, that we don't have any breed restrictions or size restrictions or species restrictions as long as they're legal in San Diego, but also making sure that we're working with our animal partners in the community. The San Diego Humane Society has been a tremendous partner in giving us trainings and helping our staff to really feel confident working around the animal with their person. So not that they have to take care of the animal, but how to approach an animal who's been through trauma with their human, how to feel safe, and interacting in that space despite their own fears and biases. So just a different approach that we've taken through lessons learned, like Tescia was speaking about, just things you learn along the way. And I made a rookie mistake.
I will be honest, I have heard that story before, and I think it's so important for us to acknowledge that we can make a mistake and that can't derail the whole program. Is just that you kind of, reset. I actually think Lori may mention that in the last presentation. Like you make a mistake and then you learn from it and then you adjust and you move forward. And what I really appreciate about you all is that you are taking all those trial and errors and really sharing your experiences with members of your own community through these open house programs that you have all put on, where other organizations in your city can actually see how it's been done and learn from those errors and learn how it is not difficult. I mean, it is a challenge, but it is a worthwhile challenge that we're all embarking on. So I really want to thank you all for being on this panel today and telling folks about the work that you're doing in your respective locations. And for all people who in attendance, please, you're going to be shifting over in your agenda to advice lines with whichever of these organizations that you have questions for. And I can imagine a world where you can like popcorn between them if you have multiple ones, or you can reach out to them on the back end, because I'm sure that everyone would be welcome to answer any questions you have. So thank you for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of the conference.